in which case the chase will begin to play back immediately at its pre-programmed speed. I can then tap on the beat button to give me a tap sync override. As you can see, the chase is now playing back to the tempo that I tapped the beat button to. To disengage the beat, press and hold it for 2 seconds. Your chase will then resume to run to the originally programmed speed. We can also adjust the factory chase offset by selecting the fixtures that we want included into the factory chase. I'll open the dimmer and shutter, then select the chase button, select the factory page that contains the factory chase that I wish to incorporate for the selected fixtures, press one of the 16 number buttons to activate the factory chase. To move the offset point, we'll press the menu button, then use the plus yes, minus no switches or the data wheel to find the move factory CHS, which is abbreviated for chase settings. And we'll press enter. Once we're in this screen, it'll tell us that page F1, chase 1, is the current selected chase. Using the data wheel, we'll scroll up or use the plus yes to scroll up to our page F2 chase 1 setting. This tells us here now we're on page F2 chase 1. We can then press the right arrow cursor and then adjust with the data wheel or the plus yes, minus no switches to adjust the offset. As you can see, the chase is moving as I am making this adjustment. Instead of hitting the back side, it is now hitting the left front side of the stage. This can all be stored into a scene button by pressing record, scene, entering the scene name and fade time, then press the up and down buttons to select a desired scene page, and then storing it to an available scene button. This scene now incorporates our factory chase offset adjustment. To exit, press the same number switch or the blackout button. A scene is a recording of the state of your lighting setup. Show Designer 1 keeps track of all your actions you perform to make the stage appear as it does. All of the actions that affect the look of the stage, such as changing channel levels, calling a chase, or calling a preset, are recorded into the scene buffer so that you can later save these actions as a scene. This method of programming also allows you to recall a scene, modify it, and then resave it as a new scene, or resave it to the same location, allowing for quick edits. To record a scene, press the fixture button and select the fixtures that you wish to control using the 1 through 16 number switches. As my 4 lights are already selected, I can control them using the faders and the joystick. I'll open the dimmer and shutter, adjust my beam position, set a gobo if desired, set a color if desired, and store that as a scene by pressing the record button. Its LED will begin to flash. Then press the scene button. Its LED will begin to flash. Our LCD tells us that the scene is unnamed as we have not named it. To name the scene, we can use our left cursor key to move the cursor underneath the first character. We can then use the data wheel or the plus minus switches to adjust the characters. I'll name this scene Green Scene. Once you've entered the name, you can press the right cursor key to the right so that you get to the fade time. You can add up to 25.5 seconds of fade time to any scene. This one is currently set to 2 seconds. I can then store my scene into one of the 64 pages that are available. As these number buttons have the LEDs lit, this indicates that there are scenes already stored there. These LEDs are not lit because they are empty or have no scene stored there. So I'll select the next available button and store my scene. The LCD will indicate that the scene has been recorded. I'll record one more scene by adjusting my beam position. I'll change the color and the gobo using the faders. Once again, I'll press record, scene, press the left cursor so I can name my scene. I'll name this Yellow Scene. I'll then press the right cursor so I can adjust the fade time. I'll change this to a 1 second fade time. I'll then store it to the next available button. And that scene has been recorded. You can also record scenes incorporating presets. Select the fixtures that contain the presets that you wish to record a scene for. These 4 fixtures I previously recorded presets for. So by pressing the preset button, I can then scroll through the preset pages and start selecting from my presets. Page 1 contains color presets. Page 2 contains gobo presets. Page 3 contains beam presets. Once I've selected all my desired presets, I can store that as a scene by pressing the record button and followed by the scene button. Then once again, I can name this scene. Press the left cursor key so that your cursor moves underneath the first character. I'll name this Blue Scene. And once again, I'll press the right cursor so I can change the fade time, which I'll adjust to 0.5 of a second. I'll then store this scene to the next available button. That scene has been recorded. I'll record one more scene using presets. Once again, select the preset button. Select the preset. Page 3 is my beam position. Page 2 contains my gobos. And page 1 contains my colors. I can then record this by pressing the record button, followed by the scene button, and then I'll name the scene. I'll name this Magenta Scene. Press the right cursor so you can adjust the fade time if desired. I'll make this 1.5 second fade. I'll then store the scene to the next available button. And that scene has been recorded. To record a scene that incorporates a factory chase, a user programmed chase, or a preset, select the fixtures that you wish to include into your chase. Then press the Chase button. Our factory pages F1, F2, and F3 are for factory built-in movements. I'll go to page 1 and select Chase 1, which contains a chase that I previously programmed. I can then select the Preset button and select a preset that I previously recorded. Page 1 contains my color presets. I'll press the up arrow button and get to page 2, which contains my gobo presets. I can then record this as a scene by pressing Record, Scene, then naming my scene as I previously described in the Recording Scene section, then select the page that I wish to store the scene to by using the up-down arrow keys, then storing it to one of the 16 buttons. As you can see, when I deselect scene 16 on page 1, it calls a blackout. When I reselect it, it automatically begins to play my scene. As you can tell, a scene is not only static, it can also contain movement in the Show Designer 1. We can also call a factory chase, as I described, being on F1, F2, and F3, F2 and F3 being for moving heads. We can then select any one of these to get factory built-in movements. And store any one that you desire as a scene. Once again, you'll press Record, Scene. Once again, name your scene and enter a fade time. As you can see, we've filled up all the scene allocations on page 1. So I'll press the up arrow key to get to page 2, which contains no scenes. I'll then store it on one of the number buttons. Once again, deselecting will call a blackout, reselecting it will play it back. Once you've recorded scenes, you can play them back by pressing the Scene button, then press the up-down button to select the desired page that contains the scenes that you wish to play back. Then press the number switch that contains the scene that you wish to play back. The scene should play back immediately. Only one scene can be played back at a time. Selecting another scene will override the previous. As you can see, the fade times that were incorporated when we recorded the scenes are affecting the movement. Pressing the same scene button will call a blackout. A show is a sequence of scenes that are recorded and played back in order at pre-programmed times. Before recording a show, you must first record the scenes that will be included in the show. Show Designer 1 lets you record up to 16 pages of 16 shows for a total of 256 shows. To record a show, press the Record button so its LED begins to flash. Next, press the Show button. Its LED will also begin to flash. The page number will display the current page. The display will show the current step that is ready to be recorded along with the scene page and scene number in that step. The word empty will appear in place of the scene page and number if there is nothing recorded at this step. The hold time for the step is displayed in hours, minutes, and seconds, allowing for tenths of a second resolution. When you first start the record process, step 000 scene start will be displayed. Step 0 is used to add a delay to the start of the show before the first scene is called. No scene can be recorded at step 0. If you don't want a delay at the start of the show, leave the hold time at 0000. You can now press the plus switch, the enter switch, or adjust the data wheel one click up. Next, press the scene button. Its LED will illuminate steady on. You can then use the up-down buttons to select the page that contains the scenes that you wish to incorporate into your show. Once you've selected the page, select the scene that you wish to incorporate as step number 1 for your show. The display will read, page 1, scene 9 has been selected, and there is a default of 5 seconds hold time. To adjust that hold time, use the plus yes, minus no switches, or use the data wheel when the cursor is moved over underneath the 5. That's a 10-second hold, 5-second hold, moving the cursor all the way to the right will give us tenths of a second resolution. We'll set this at a 7-second hold time. Press enter to store the step. We'll then select our next scene for our second show step. The display once again tells us we're still on page 1 and we've selected scene 11. The hold time defaults to what was previously selected. We can once again change that using the minus and plus switches or the data wheel. I'll set that to hold for 10 seconds. Then press enter to store it. I'll select another scene from my page, which is still 1, scene 10. I'll then use the minus to decrease my hold time to 4 seconds and press enter to store. I'll select one final scene for my show, which is scene 12 from page 1. I'll set this scene to hold for 9 seconds. Now it's important to note that when you've reached your final show step, that you do not press enter. Pressing enter will add an empty show step. At this point, press the scene button so that its LED turns off. You can then press the right cursor key so that it passes the tenths of a second slot and gets to the point where you can name your show. You can then adjust the characters using the data wheel or the plus minus no buttons. I'll name this show XYZ Show. Pressing the right cursor key continually will get you underneath the L in Loop Show. In this setting, you can change this by using the plus yes or minus no buttons or the data wheel to play show once. This setting will allow the show to play back once and stop when the show is played back. If you wish to have your show continually loop, then you leave it in this setting, Loop Show. To get back to the main screen, press the left cursor button to get the cursor to the main screen. Once you've set all your settings, you're now ready to store the show. Use the up-down arrow buttons to select a desired page. We'll store our show to button 1. The show has been recorded. To exit, press the record button. To play back a show, press the show button, then select the page that contains the show that you wish to play back. Then select one of the 16 number switches that contain the actual show. The show should begin to play back immediately. If the show is set to loop, it will restart after the last step's hold time has counted down. If loop was set to off, the show will end after the last scene has been called. Pressing the same show button will call a blackout. You can select the new show by selecting a new show button. Selecting a new show button while one is running will override the previous show. You can press the left arrow button to pause a show. As you can see, the timer has stopped running, and press the right arrow key to start the clock.